And we're live, beaming to you directly and live from Sydney, Australia and Queensland, Australia. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have got a very special guest who has been seeking that missing something from her life and has great empathy for the suffering of humanity. Despite feeling a call to serve, she first endured much of her own trauma and suffering. In an attempt to feel her own pain, she went on a journey through darkness in her early 20s, suffering from deep drug addiction, homelessness, and a myriad of mental illnesses. From a desire to heal herself first, she spent over a decade, learning tools she could transform her own life with. Knowing and overcoming her own darkness has inspired her to pass on the skills she's learnt from masters, gurus, yogis, monks, and teachers from all around the world. These tools came together to make her Beyond Ego method, which she uses today to support people in breaking through and stepping into their own limitless potential. She's a qualified yoga and meditation teacher. She has a degree in Buddhist philosophy and a degree in psychology. She's also a student of the Metaphysical Text, A Course in Miracles, a student of the work of self-inquiry with Muji Baba, and a student of traditional Ashtanga yoga, a student of shamanic herbalism, and a student of the work by Byron Katie. So today, folks, I would like to welcome none other than Kate Chiffey Gray to the Awakening Point. Welcome, Kate. How are you today?
You. I am so amazing and so happy to be here. Thank you for having me on. Yay.
Kate, it's been a bit of a sleepless few days for me because, you know, in the past days I've been really having a look at your story, your online footprint and everything, and I'm actually so excited to have you on the show. I really am.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad we've connected. I've been secretly stalking you for a while, so I'm pretty stoked to be chatting to you.
It's so good when people like ourselves kind of like get together and, you know, jump online like this and show other people, you know, like maybe another side of life that they're really, really interested in, and have a look on YouTube and stuff, maybe 2 or 3 nights a week. But, you know, don't dive into fully, maybe like you and I have. And I'm looking forward to really hearing your story about this.
Yes. Yeah, I'm so excited to share. It's my life. It's a passion. It doesn't feel like work anymore. It feels like just a way of being.
Yeah, I love that. And today's topic is like entheogens, ego, and enlightenment, which are incredible, exciting topics. Where would you like to start this journey today?
Let's start with entheogens, which is essentially, well, not essentially, it is psychedelics. For anyone that is not sure what entheogens means, it is another word for psychedelics. It's a newer word. Psychedelics are a really big passion of mine, and I'm an advocate for their legalization for therapeutical and medicinal purposes. I'm not so much of a fan of them used recreationally. However, I did start my journey on them recreationally, so I guess there is a place for them in that realm, because it does get people like myself and many others who now use it as a vessel for awakening started. And I believe that they can change the future of humanity. That's very much my stance.
And entheogens, this word is a word that really denotes like a spiritual experience.
Yes,
like spiritual development is right at the forefront of this word, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah. The word itself means to awaken the God within, and I'm pretty sure that's right. There's that, and psychedelics means something else in Greek as well. Oh, I need to check that out. But psychedelics is the Greek word, and then entheogens, I'm pretty sure, means to awaken the God within. And that's exactly what it does. And psychedelics do as well. Like, they've been given such, it's the same thing, but they've been given such a bad name. So I think entheogens may have been a new media campaign, perhaps, for those in the field to give it a new image, a new brand campaign. I'm not sure. However, they both do allow us to access the truth of who we are. And they do allow us to awaken the God within, because within us is the same God that created everything that we see. And that allows us to transcend the conditioning of the ego and society to actually step into the truth of who we are, which is, in a way, God.
What I find amazing about what you're saying here is that in my own research, I'm finding that these things existed at the most sacred level of civilization, way back from like the Sumerians, even Göbekli Tepe. There is evidence of these sorts of things. It's absolutely incredible how our society today has kind of made this into such a taboo thing.
The Vietnam War. That's essentially 3 words can explain all of that. So what happened was a lot of the soldiers were taking LSD and feeling, well, I just watched another talk with Kalindi who was saying apparently JFK was also taking LSD, but I'm not educated enough on that, so I'll go back to the Vietnam War. The Vietnam War, the soldiers were taking LSD and not wanting to fight anymore. In fact, they were actually wanting to create peace and love, because when you awaken the God within, you realize we're all one, we're all the same. There's no separation, there's no need for warfare or fighting. So what happened was the US government were terrified. They were like, who's going to fight our war? So they went to the UN and they petitioned the UN to create an agreement where almost every country in the world, all bar about 8, signed a petition criminalizing psychedelics or any psychotropic substances. And from that moment, from 1969 on, it's just gotten worse and worse. They've used fear tactics, fear campaigns, people die. And the truth is, way less people die on entheogens or plant medicine or psychedelics, whatever you want to call it. Actually, none die from the medicine itself. They die from contraindicators, from not listening to the guidelines. If you think about alcohol, tobacco, and pharmaceuticals, you can't even compare them. Like, they're the top 3 killers in America, yet people are worried about their kids taking LSD. It's actually kind of crazy.
I'm so with you on this, Kate. I am so with you. I was listening to something by Bruce Lipton just a couple of days ago, and Bruce was outlining how this war on drugs has, like, on that side of the fence, I think 30,000 people, per annum die on that side of the fence.
Yeah.
When it comes to prescription, legal, so-called, in America alone, there's over 300,000 deaths a year.
It's
just
crazy.
in that. I mean, and the war on drugs is on something that's just not doing anywhere near the harm. It just goes to show you the intent.
Yes, well, I mean, the government would be really in a bad way if we all become in touch with who we truly are. That would be quite terrifying for the government that are trying to rule us through fear and separation and lack, the 3 things that aren't our truth. So I can see why it's been, I guess, slandered how it has.
Yeah, basically to the point where really good, intelligent people have this stigma about it that just, without them knowing, they're part of blocking it. But I mean, they're not. This is coming out more and more, and it's becoming an important topic to discuss. And people who delve into our history can see clearly that this has had a huge part to play in our awakening.
Massive. And what I found, I was doing some research the other day, and I found some interesting statistics that the LD50, the lethal dose 50 for water, is 6 liters for a 60-kilo man. So for a 60-kilo man, he could sit and drink 6 liters of water, and 50% of, say, half of the group that they would have tested, they didn't test on men, by the way, they tested on animals, but then they do their little calculations and base it on men, would die. So 50% of 60-kilo men, it is assumed that if they drink 6 liters of water at once, they will die. They can't find an LD50 for ayahuasca. And they tested it, and they can't find one. Yet, ayahuasca has slander and smear campaigns against it, and the reason it makes me annoyed is that no one's really going to sit and drink 6 liters of water. However, these substances are made out to be evil and bad and lethal, when actually they're no more lethal than something we all drink every day and need to survive. It's really crazy.
It is, that really is. And I mean, there's so much research that's out there that shows that this stuff can really help with addiction,
Yes.
with relationships, like there's more and more research coming out.
Yes, Gabor Mate, I'm sure you're familiar with him, Dr. Gabor. He's a leading
Yes.
addiction expert, uses ayahuasca to help with heroin addiction. 3 ceremonies is an equivalent to 50 years of psychotherapy. Like, it's just, like, you can't not Google it these days. You can't not Google psychedelic benefits and not find a list of medicinal and therapeutical benefits and how they're leading the way in healing far more than the pharmaceuticals that we're taught to believe will help us. They don't. They band-aid it, whereas psychedelics, entheogens or plant medicine, they actually cure it. They get to the curing, to the cause, to the root cause, whereas pharmaceuticals just band-aid.
Absolutely. I mean, these things really bring up our fears that we're quite often not even aware of in a very clear way right in front of us, don't they?
Yes, they really do. They really do. Ayahuasca is very much like a therapist.
Wow. And what are your personal experiences in working with these substances and helping other people with them?
So personally, they've completely changed my life. So for many years, I gained intellectual knowledge and I knew everything cerebrally. I had an understanding, yet I never could fully experience what the gurus, monks and teachers and lecturers were telling me. I was like, well, I understand it up here, but why can't I experience it and embody it? Like, it was always just that little bit past where I was, until I started working with plant medicines. And then I was able to embody what I was taught in ancient texts. Finally, I was able to experience my limitlessness, my infiniteness, my eternalness. Is that even a word? So I was told the soul never dies, right? We were all told, oh, don't worry, once energy is created, it can never cease to exist. So don't worry about death. Yet on plant medicine, I experienced that.
So it goes from the knowing to the being, and that's the beauty of it. And I've seen it, and I've changed people's lives.
Like the people that we've supported and facilitated for, like from drug addictions to, healing sexual abuse, like people who have had blocks. One lady recently said she'd spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on personal development. And she said, I could have just sat one ayahuasca ceremony because I got far more out of that one ayahuasca ceremony than I did out of the hundreds of thousands of dollars I put into personal development. She said, I really got to see myself and where I was stuck in a way that I've never done before. Like, that's one of so many.
Kate, what do you think it is about these substances that enable people to see or perceive things from such a different place to be healed so deeply?
Yes, so I believe the root cause of suffering for humanity is our separation and our spiritual amnesia that we are actually whole and complete. We are perfect, but we're born into this world that teaches us the counter. And from that teaching that we are not enough or we're separated manifests addictions or violence or just ultimate suffering and unhappiness. When we sit with the plants, the teacher plants, we, for the first time in our life, we've been told we're whole and complete, we do the affirmations, blah, 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 but for the first time in our life, we feel it in our bodies and we experience it for a period of time. And that experience shifts everything, because it's one thing to know, but when you be it and you become it, you can never go back from that, ever.
Wow. And when it's all over, I suppose you've got then a period of maybe months where what you experienced, you can then start to work on in your life and improve it, heal yourself day by day.
Yes. It's kind of a little bit like learning to live again, because everything looks a little bit different, like the veil's been lifted, you perceive everything a little differently, which is why support and integration is really important, which is one thing I have a little bit of a, not an issue, but I'm a bit dubious about people when they go overseas and they sit retreats, but they go in, they do like 4 ayahuasca ceremonies over 7 days, and then they're like, okay, see you later. And it's like, well, these people, what are they going to do now with the veil's been lifted. You've unplugged them from the matrix, and now you're kicking them out. Like they need some kind of help.
Wow, that's actually a good way to put it. I never thought of that. So then, yeah, I suppose they have to jump on a plane, turn up back home from the Amazon, and it's like, wow, how do I even continue this?
Exactly. Who am I? Everything I've believed has been changed.
So you've got people like, we mentioned Bruce Lipton, Dennis McKenna, Graham Hancock, Jordan Peterson, Bill Wilson, the guy who started AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, these are huge names. These are very respectable professionals, experts, academics in their fields. And all of these people, scientists, clinical psychologists, authors, speaking about the benefits of entheogens, the experience for spiritual growth, to get to see our true nature and the nature of reality. Do you think that when people are having this experience that it's just happening inside us, or do you believe that we're actually entering maybe an overlapping reality or getting a glimpse to some other dimension?
Yes. That's such a good question. That's the second time I've been asked that in 2 weeks. I love this question. And the first time I really had to think about it because I'd never given it much thought before. I just kind of trusted in whatever was going on. But I feel it's this way. So if you imagine, say, 11 hospital beds all lined up in a row, and between each hospital bed there's curtains. And the curtains, the more awakened we become, the more see-through those curtains become. So we can begin to see through the dimensions. We can begin to see through different realities. When you're on the medicine, I believe those curtains are pushed back completely. So whether those dimensions are within us, or whether we are those dimensions, or whether they're outside of us, I'm not 100% sure. But we do definitely tap into the multiverse on some level. Now, the multiverse I could be the multiverse, you could be the multiverse, collectively we could be the multiverse. However, I definitely know that we travel there. I'm just not exactly sure where it's cosmologically situated.
Wow, great answer. Yeah. So, I mean, the people report basically experiencing the entire world, breathing in and out. They feel a connection with other living things, not just people that are near them, but anything that's alive, like they're connected, like they're one with it, and it changes their entire life. What do you think's going on there with that?
We recognize that we're all divine. So the root cause being the idea of separation, that we're separate from source, that we're separate from each other, that dissolves. And we remember that, in fact, there is only one. We are one. We are connected. There is no difference. So despite our ethnicity, our gender, our culture, our race, we're just one. So for so long, people have gone through their life feeling like they don't belong, or feeling bad because they've been rejected here and there. Once that dissolves, because you realize there's no separation, it changes everything. Everything. That's what they're experiencing. Reconnection to the oneness that is the reality of who we are.
And this is exactly what I feel so strongly about this topic, that people struggle with this all their lives.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes decades of committed practice, dedication, turning their own lives upside down and moving to different parts of the world, where in this case, somebody can have an experience that within a few hours, or sometimes much less or a little bit more, can completely just change everything for them from that moment. That's powerful. That's incredible, isn't it?
It's so powerful, and it's why I'm such a big advocate for it being included in personal spiritual development. Like you said before, so many ancient civilizations have used this for a reason. So it needs to come back. It needs to come back to be a commonly used thing. There's a wisdom and a mystical element to it that can help us all unlock what is causing all of this awful stuff that's going on.
I totally agree with you. I mean, there's something very profound about this that we really do need to go into further, because there seems to be a link between like the creation of this virtual reality that we're in, the geometry of it, the fractal nature of reality, that these substances seem to, people are reporting left, right and center that they're seeing geometric shapes, that they're seeing fractal imagery kind of like behind the workings of this reality. There's something very, very spiritual to this, I'm sure of it.
Yes. Well, I think when they did the test, John Hopkins did they used psilocybin to treat cancer patients when they were like terminally ill cancer patients, to help them with like the fear of death. And I think something like 80% of the test group reported having like, you know, one of the two most spiritual experiences of their life on these, and there were small doses of psilocybin. They wasn't, you know, a Kalindi EE dose of 40 grams. They were small doses, and they reported having, you know, two of the most profoundly spiritual experiences of their life. Like, that's crazy. You can't deny that when it's coming up time and time and time and time again.
100%, and that is so important to a beautiful soul who's trying to deal with the death, you know, their own death and transition in this world. It's such a beautiful thing that there's something out there that can help them deal with that. That's got to be a good thing, right?
Totally. And also when someone we love dies as well. There was a lady the other day who was saying that she went to ayahuasca ceremony to help her heal the loss of her husband. And then after the ceremony, she said, I actually got really jealous that he went and I didn't, because wow, that was really beautiful.
Wow. So you just quoted like some research that's helping people like get rid of their or deal with their fear of death. And I actually heard Jordan Peterson and Bruce Lipton actually quote the same study with the same results from that institution. That you know, I feel so good that research is being done into this, because I mean, you know, sometimes research dollars get funded only to you know, institutions that help perpetuate the status quo, which we both know is not really what we want. So it's nice that there is some funding and research going into this kind of thing, and that names like Jordan Peterson and Bruce Lipton are openly discussing this with everyone. I mean, we'd expect it from Dennis McKenna and the crew like that, you know, that these guys live it, you know, but to see other scientific minds discuss it is great. And that's one of the things I was so excited about having you on the show today to discuss this, because you're the first person that's actually been on the Awakening Point LiveCast to discuss this topic.
Amazing. That's so good. I'm so excited. There's also, if anyone's watching or yourself, the Imperial College of London actually have a whole department geared towards psychedelic research. And the Professor Robin, actually, I'm going to put his name in the comment section because I can't pronounce it properly and I feel like I'm going to do it a massive disservice. So he's from the Imperial College of London. He's got a lot of TED Talks, but you can actually download the research from their website. They did depression using psilocybin to treat incurable depression with insane results, like crazy results. I think it was, again, around 80% of the people reported an overwhelming sensation of relief, calmness, happiness, and a dissolving of their symptoms of depression. Again, very small doses of psilocybin.
Yeah, that's unbelievable. I mean, nothing else has had this kind of positive impact on people. I mean, I watched the documentary. I'm sure you've seen it, The Spirit Molecule.
Oh, yes.
You know, where people were given dimethyltryptamine. And I mean, what they were reporting in as far as feelings of oneness with the universe, you know, like it's just such a beautiful thing to have people openly speaking so lovingly about a spiritual experience so intensely and complete, you know, like they're right in there. It's amazing stuff.
It's so, and each medicine has a different kind of effect as well. So they all have a different element or personality or intelligence as well. So I love that. I love that more and more of them are getting utilized to help. It's beautiful. Oh, Bruce Lipton, yes. I love him too.
Yeah. Glenda was
Glenda, he's beautiful. Yes.
So, Kate, why don't you take us through some of these entheogens? And you were just saying that they've all got kind of like different personalities or characters, as we could say.
Yes.
Could you take us through and like enlighten us a little bit on the different substances that you've had experience with?
Yes. So I've only experienced 4, and I really only use 3 with myself and with others. So the main one that I personally prefer to use is psilocybin mushrooms, hence my obsession with Kalindi EE. And for me, mushrooms have this unique, almost elfish, cheeky kind of element to them. And they have allowed me to travel into the quantum field. They've allowed me to travel into the Akashic records. I have been traveling back to the 1960s, to the 70s, to the 80s. They are so magical. They're a little elusive with the lessons that you get in them. So ayahuasca is very much like a therapist. You walk away from a ceremony with 3 or 4 point forms and you're like, yeah, I've got to work on these. Mushrooms, you're like, I set this intention, but I'm not really sure if it got answered. But then afterwards, it starts to kind of come into your life. So they're a bit cheeky and elusive, but they're also the oldest known plant medicine. As Kalindi says, they're pre-alchemized. They need to alchemize. So ayahuasca, San Pedro, all of those. Well, San Pedro you can eat raw, but ayahuasca you need to have a pot. You need to be able to boil it. Whereas mushrooms, they're in the Bible, manna in the Bible. And then the Sahara Desert, when all the African tribes were wandering through to pick up, to search for food, they would be picking up the mushrooms and eating them, and that's how they begun to get integrated into society and humanity. So the mushroom itself holds all that information for all that time. So when you're working with them, you have access to all of that plethora of information that's held in the mushroom, in the organism. So you can pretty much go anywhere and do anything. You need to take a decent dose though, like a lot of people microdose on them sometimes. They're an arousal plant medicine, so sometimes they arouse men in some interesting ways. That is a side effect sometimes. But they do arouse arouse sight, hearing, which is why a lot of the tribesmen use them for hunting, because they made you a little bit more of a heightened hunter. So you're more aware. You had this sense of awareness of what's going on around you. So I use those to travel through the multiverse and to download information and to manifest whatever I'm looking at bringing into my existence. I love them. Then we've got ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is definitely like a therapist. She's the grandmother of the two famous plants. There's 3. There's peyote, San Pedro, and ayahuasca. I've not sat with peyote. I haven't felt called to doing that. San Pedro is the grandfather. Ayahuasca is the grandmother. She takes us up and out. So a lot of people say we visit the spiritual realm, or you can go into different dimensions when you're on her. She has a history of sometimes she gives us what we need, but not often what we want. So sometimes people can report back to having difficult experiences on her. However, it's always what people need. It's not particularly what they want at the time. She can be very direct, very blunt, like a grandmother disciplining her grandchild, essentially. Like, she can be like this. However, the growth that you get from her is like, one ceremony is like 10 years of psychotherapy sessions. It's crazy. And then San Pedro is the grandfather. And if you're looking at having a feeling of oneness and connectivity and love and connection to the earth and to each other, he is definitely the medicine to sit with. He allows you to feel like you're being hugged by your grandfather. He's stoic and calm in energy and very subtle. You often don't even realize that it's coming on. It's not as intense as ayahuasca. He's about grounding. Mushrooms are about grounding. Ayahuasca takes us up. So we've got 2 groundings and 1 that takes us up. And then LSD, which I have taken since my early 20s. And that has a whole different compound. Obviously, it was formulated in the 40s, so it has the intelligence and the information from the 40s to now in it. For me, that gives me clarity of mind, just ability to see whatever it is that I need to see in that moment, and just to be really sharp and on the point. And you have this psychic ability when you're on LSD.
Wow.
I'm sorry, I don't think I took a breath.
That was absolutely amazing. Okay, so
a lot of information. Sorry, guys.
no, that's exactly what we want. That's why this show exists. We want that. I mean, I just felt like I got a download from in the Matrix every time Neo goes to see the Oracle, and she gives him a cookie or a piece of candy, and then he eats that candy, and in the next scene he can fly or he can do something new. And that actually, when you were talking about the mushrooms, about psilocybin, I mean, these things have been around for over 600 million years. That is a very, very long time.
Very long time.
The atomic structure of the mushrooms are more like an animal than a plant.
Yes.
And apparently we share 30% of our DNA with these things.
Yes, which is amazing.
Yes.
So
That's
interesting.
Incredible that there's this fungus where we eat it, and it just opens up our perception to like the world. It kind of like communicates with us or something.
It does. It works with us, but it's so cheeky. Like it makes you work for the information, I believe. It doesn't just hand it out freely. Ayahuasca hands it out freely. The mushrooms are a bit more elusive, but they do work with each person's DNA individually. So everyone has like this unique experience, and they're innately intelligent. They keep working with you before and after you sat with the medicine. Like there's something about them. I know Terence McKenna believed that they were extraterrestrial. So perhaps that's a theory. Maybe that's why they're here. They're here to help us all individually do something unique for our DNA and our gift to awaken and upgrade ourselves.
Definitely. I definitely get that feeling that these little buggers are like upgrades to help us, deal with the Matrix.
They really are like that. You're right, they're DNA upgrades. I think that's a really good explanation for what mushrooms are, yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I can understand why Terence McKenna believed they were interplanetary, because, I mean, there is some scientific I wouldn't say evidence, but a lot of scientists do say that the spores may be able to survive a trip through space.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never heard that before. That doesn't surprise me at all.
And that's amazing when you think about how mushrooms spore. Like it's like going through space and landing on another planet with an atmosphere. I mean, it's the perfect way to populate like a planet with intelligent beings. And you mentioned that the mushrooms are a little bit cheeky, and I get the feeling that because we're basically advanced chimpanzees, as a species, and chimpanzees are crazy. They really are crazy. These poor mushrooms are probably thinking, these crazy chimpanzees are destroying this planet. They are crazy. Like we better communicate to these crazy buggers and get them to stop destroying this planet. And start loving each other a bit more.
So true. Oh my God, they probably are. They're probably like rolling their little mushroom eyes at us. Amazing. So,
talk to us a little bit about the, if you have a type of ritual or like a framework that goes along with these experiences. Do you have like a type of ritual?
Each one has a different ritual. So ayahuasca, a shaman will facilitate that. Each shaman has his own kind of take, like what will happen in Peru would be different to somewhere else in the world, but it is very much about a ritualistic experience. We wear white, we get sage, we neutralize the energy. There's the music, whether it's live or recorded, the music works synchronistically with the journey. It takes you where you need to go. Everybody's in one room. Whereas mushrooms, personally for me, I don't want anyone near me. I like to, obviously, a trip sitter But other than that, I just like to go to bed and just put the covers over my head and off I go. And then San Pedro is often ceremonially done in a way where you'll walk in nature. You'll either climb mountains, or you'll go to a lake, or you'll get out, because it is about that connection. LSD, I've always set an intention. I've created my own little ritual, but it doesn't have the history of the other plant medicines, so it doesn't have that, I guess, ritual aspect to it.
So talk to us a little bit about set and setting when it comes to these things.
Yes, and this is why I'm really unsure about how we could bring it to be completely decriminalized, because set and setting, like, although I think that this should be available for everyone, I don't think it is for everyone at every point in their life. So set is your mental set, your emotional well-being, your mental illness history. Having said that, though, I suffered from drug-induced psychosis in my early 20s from ice addiction, and I've never had any kind of issue at all on psychedelics. So it is relevant to each person. However, I feel I'm a rare case. So set, if somebody has had psychosis, or they've just got out of a mental hospital, or they've just tried to kill themselves, they're not going to have the right emotional and mental facilitation ability to process what's happened to them, because they're already kind of unstable. So for somebody to sit with the medicines, they need to be of a clear mind and have those tools and ability to reason and be in a state of awareness of the experience, rather than freaking out and going into a kind of psychosis. Setting is the environment. So mushrooms are not meant to be taken on a beach in Thailand, which is where they are taken a lot. They're meant to be taken in a safe environment where you've got someone watching you, where you're comfortable, where you feel nice. The same with ayahuasca. You wouldn't go to an environment where you felt unsafe. The setting is so important, because the energetic frequencies that is creating the container for where you sit with the medicine will actually affect your journey. So if you're in a pub down at Surface Paradise, which is, I know people that take mushrooms in pubs and surface, it's not going to create the greatest container. And that's why people flip out and freak out, because they're not in the right energetic container setting for them to actually process the medicine.
That makes total sense. Yeah. And look, how often are you personally engaging with these plants? Like, is it something you do regularly, or just maybe 3 times a year or something?
Yeah, about once a month.
Yeah,
I will sit with. So they're all self-regulating, which is really interesting. The research that's been done on all of them is that, unlike alcohol and tobacco, where an addictive element will form, with the medicines, you kind of intuitively know when you don't actually need them anymore. So for me, with ayahuasca, I won't sit for a while. I don't feel called or feel like I need to sit with her, even though the opportunity's there. I'll be around the environment. I don't feel like I need to at the moment. Mushrooms is very much a scheduled monthly thing for me, because I'm looking at exploring the multiverse and actually building up my skills and courage and cultivating my ability to become Dr. Strange, essentially. So that is a regular monthly thing. But the others, maybe every 2 months. But I won't be sitting with again for a little while, and San Pedro maybe every 2 months.
Okay. You've got a delightful energy, Kate. You really do.
Thank you.
Okay, so in as far as things like traditional spiritual practices, meditation, stuff like this, how's your spiritual life, your practices with meditation and stuff like that, compared to like these once a month trips with a plant medicine? Like, do you meditate regularly?
Daily. Yeah, daily. So I practice Ashtanga yoga. So that's a 5 to 6 day a week practice, which is 2 hours essentially. I actually think it's very much like an ayahuasca journey. So anyone who's done Ashtanga and ayahuasca can probably actually relate to that. It's about facing off with all your discomforts while staying present in the moment and connected to your breath for 2 hours. So I practice that 5 to 6 days a week, and then I do a silent sitting every morning. So I found the more I sit with the medicines, the faster I can drop into state. Much faster. Most of the time, I'm in a meditative state anyway. Like, life is meditation. And the Ashtanga and the medicines together have made a massive difference for me to reach a new level of silence. I don't like saying the word levels, but it's a lot more silent here than it ever has been. I think that's probably the best way to describe it. There's not as much as this anymore. It's kind of quietened down a lot.
Yes, that actually makes a lot of sense. So when you're actually in the experience of that the plants give you, because you practice quietening your mind and being at one, being calm, you get to, like, you don't have to do that work and struggle through that in the actual experience. So you're kind of like just straight into it. That's that makes a lot of sense. It must be beautiful doing it that way.
It is. And Terence McKenna even talks about breath. And the yoga I practice is about breath. Breath is the method. We stay with the breath. Always the breath. Connect to the earth. Stay with the breath. So in the medicine ceremonies, I'm just stay with my breath. Connect with my breath. So no matter what arises, I meet it just with my breath. So I'm still staying in the present moment. Just like in life, we just stay with the breath. The breath is the method.
And while you're working with your breath, have you had any instances that you can remember where your ego has reared its ugly head in a really strong way and kind of like shocked you?
Yes. So for a while, a few ceremonies ago, I had the fear of death. I faced off with the fear of death in an ayahuasca ceremony. And after that, I got very much deeply back into my yoga practice, and it seemed to trigger an ego fear around death. So every time I was on the yoga mat, I'd begin to have a panic that I was going to die. In bed, I would be panicking that I was going to die. So because I have a beautiful support system and mentor, it was explained to me that this is just the instinctual body and the ego afraid because I'm about to slip into a deeper level of awakening. But the ego is tricky. It's a tricky bugger. It followed me around for quite a while with panic about dying.
I can understand that. It's almost like, because you're becoming so at one, because you're becoming so peaceful, and that it's like the ego gets panic stricken that you're going to dissolve it completely.
Yes.
So it really, like, I'm not leaving you. I'm here.
It's life or death. It's fighting for its life, essentially. It's like, no.
Wow. And have you had this kind of ego confrontation with your own ego, with your own fears, repeatedly? Is this something that always comes up, or it's just every now and again you have an experience like that?
Very rare now. Like, this is since I traveled to Portugal to sit at the feet of Muji a while ago. And that was the first time without plant medicine I experienced like full submersion into oneness. So after that, I was very much able to stay in awareness. So the ego would come, but I wouldn't engage it. So Muji says the best salesperson in the world can't sell us anything if we don't buy. So that would always be in my mind. I'm not going to buy your bullshit, ego. Excuse my language. I'm not going to buy your rubbish, and I'm going to stay with my breath. And you can be chitter-chattering, but I'm not looking at you. And then eventually it would dissolve. But the fear of death one, it got my attention in a big way. I was like, oh my God, am I going to die? Oh my God. So, so up in maybe the last 12 months, no, that's the only issue has really been that the fear of death, which happened about 3 months ago.
Wow. And Kate, tell us a little bit more about meeting Muji, is it?
Yes, Muji, yes.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about that, how that happened and what that's all about.
So Muji is a spiritual teacher who's in Portugal, and he's in the self-inquiry lineage, which is the same lineage that I'm in. And he is an enlightened being. And I don't know that logically, I know that from what I felt. So when I was in the room with him, and I would look at him, he would awaken something in me that I know I am him and I can be like him. So he has this power and ability because he's awakened, right? He's enlightened. And when he hugged me, I felt like I did on 5-MeO DMT. I disappeared. My ego, my mind completely disappeared. And that's the first time that's ever happened without the medicine. And he is an incredible man. He doesn't want followers. He says, don't follow me. I'm not your answer. You're your own answer. So he always points us back to ourselves. And the premise of his work is that we're already enlightened and awakened. We've just forgotten. And it's just about remembering who you are. And that's very much the way that I work with people as well.
That's absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
That was really nice listening to that. So in that moment where you're experiencing that, I suppose the best way to explain it, nothingness, where you're just totally present in that moment.
Yeah.
Is there like a feeling of overwhelming love?
Yeah, well, it was love. But love was me. There was no separation. If that makes sense. Yes.
Absolutely. And it's interesting that was the first time in your life that you experienced that, like, just what we could call a normal state, even though normal is not the right word, but you know what I mean.
Yes.
That's amazing as well. And do you have regular contact with Muji? Do you go back to Portugal every now and again when you can?
Yes, so it's hard to have contact with him because he has so many followers. So there's like 500 people at his retreat, or 5,000 in India. Although since then I've actually found another teacher that I've had even deeper experience from the same lineage, who actually was Muji's spiritual brother in India. And I didn't realize this. This is I'll be really quick, short story. I studied 3 years ago with a teacher here that I had a really strong connection with. And then because Ashtanga brought up all my fears and my ego, at that stage 3 years ago, I ran away. So I disappeared. And then I found Muji and I ran to Muji and I did all of Muji's work. And then I came back and I went back to Ashtanga. And it turns out my Ashtanga teacher was in India with Muji when they both studied with Papaji, who was their teacher. And it's such a not a coincidence, right? Synchronicity.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
The universe really reaching out to you.
Yes. So at the moment I won't go back because I have another Guruji that I will stay working with. And I've been able to reach far. Yeah, that feeling is mostly my life.
Wow. And Kate, talk to us a little bit about the programs that you run where you are coaching people, where you are leading people. I mean, I'm loving your humility here. You're not even going into the area where you're helping people. All you're talking about is where you are serving others, and I love that about you. I mean, we're nearly an hour into it and you haven't even mentioned a single word about you helping people. That's beautifully refreshing. Like, so nice. But I'm really interested in knowing, like a little bit about how you help other people.
Yes. So the name that I have, that my human has, the person that I play has, is the Spiritual Compass. And that name came from my desire to lead people home to themselves. So people are just lost in this abyss, in this crazy egoic world, and they've forgotten that they're actually already where they need to be. It's already in here. So my programs and retreats are all geared towards bringing them back to themselves. And the methods I use are plant medicine, somatic therapy, and self-inquiry, which is the work that I did with Muji. And somatic work is wisdom of the body. It unlocks our ability to self-regulate our experience. And what I mean by that is most humans suffer because of pent-up emotions and our inability to facilitate feelings. So everything that's ever happened to you in your life is imprinted on your nervous system in a cellular memory. So if we don't clear that, we'll keep repeating, as Dr. Joe Dispenza says, we'll keep repeating the same programs over and over again because we go back to habitual ways of thinking and feeling. So the way that we've helped people in the West thus far to the last 10 years has all been about thinking. They've missed the feeling. So the work that we do is we use the medicine to take people into the truth of who they are, so it dissolves the thinking. Then we allow them to remove the repressed memories of who they think they are from their body through somatic work, through Osho's dynamic meditation, through breath work, through trauma release, through laughing yoga. Somatic, actually, it's my favorite thing to do. And then we do self-inquiry to help them integrate by just keeping bringing them back to their truth. You know, who are you? Who is the one asking who you are? So just bringing it back, and so they can just remember and just stay in that state. So I do that with my Beyond Ego mentorship, which is 3 months in person and online, and with my retreats. They're all full this year until Vanuatu at the end of the year in the beginning of December.
Wow. I'm loving, you know, the synchronicity of this, you know, just hearing you say that your work is, you know, based on helping people dissolve this and getting in touch with the heart, get in touch with their feelings, you know, their emotional state. You know, this is basically what the Awakening Point is all about. And just hearing you say that, so beautiful. Just so beautiful, so connecting with other humans that get this and that are out there, you know, like walking that hero's journey that Joseph Campbell spoke to us about so long.
I love that documentary. Have you seen that documentary?
I have, you know, and it just keeps coming up. And every time I interview heroes like yourself, I always walk away thinking of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, because all of you walk the same kind of path, go through the same calling, you answer that calling, you deal with your fears, you deal with all of the challenges that come up, and you know, you guys really put yourself out there, and then because you've done that, you can share your heart with other people in such a beautiful way and help heal them and help them answer their calling on their path. And I just love that. I really love that.
Thank you so much.
Kate, in your bio, you know, it also mentions academic qualifications, like your degrees. Can you talk to us a little bit about what you studied at university?
Yeah, so I studied Buddhist philosophy and psychology, and Buddhist philosophy was beautiful and amazing, and it started me on my journey. So at the time that I started that degree, I was very much raw and still believing I was coming out of it. So it was a time where just after my father had died, and I had come home because I was homeless and ice addicted in New Zealand. So my mum brought me home. I was dealing with my dad nearly like on his deathbed. I thought, oh, what will I do? I'll go to uni. Brilliant idea. I'll study Buddhist philosophy. Great. And it actually really saved me, I'll be honest. It helped me reconnect with the truth of who we are, and it helped me understand that cultivating love and kindness and compassion towards myself was the way that I was going to get out of, because I was always giving it to others but never to myself, and that was the issue. So that was huge. That was massive. And psychology, if I'm 100% honest, pretty much I never use it, and it kind of led me into somatic. So I didn't enjoy my degree. I would never clinically practice. I feel that talk therapy is not very conducive, and it got me into somatics. I'm
not surprised at all that you that you say
I'm trying
that.
To be polite.
And the second you said it, I was like, wow, it doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah. That's just awesome, Kate. Absolutely awesome, and it's totally in line with everything else that you've shared with us. So I'm actually I'm stunned. That's like really, really beautiful. You know, you're embedded deeply, you know, with the earth, with the human spirit, with the human heart. You know, I'm absolutely having a blast doing this interview with you. So what else can you tell us about, you know, the journey that you help people take, like in their struggles? in their, you know, in their challenges, where they get stuck, you know, how you help them through all of that, and why you do that.
Why is because I want to free people from suffering. We weren't born to suffer. We really weren't. We were born to have an infinite, limitless experience in a human body for a temporary amount of time. So if we spend that entire, 80, 90 years suffering, well, then we're going to come back again. And hopefully we remember the next time, or we'll end up suffering again for 90 years. So if I can help awaken the hearts of other people to liberate them from suffering, well, then I feel like I've left a legacy. And how I do that is essentially, it's not rainbows, lollipops, and My Little Ponies. A lot of it is facing off with what they're not. So we bring up the ego, the limiting beliefs, the BS stories, the programs, the matrix conditioning, and we dismantle it. And we do that through self-inquiry, somatics, and the plant medicine. So we enable people to transcend what they are not. So first you've got to meet what you are not. You've got to face off with that. That's the dragons from Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. You've got to face off with those dragons. And then once they've faced off with them, they realize, oh my gosh, it was me the whole time. And then they're able to transcend that into the fact that they're limitless and infinite, and they don't need to be constricted and confined by anything, that all that they've been taught is not even theirs. We're not restricted. We don't need to be in fear. We don't need to suffer. All of that is what the powers that be would like us to believe, because then we stay small. But that is not the truth, and we don't have to be that way anymore. So we face off with everything, and then people are reborn into the truth of who they are.
So they're reborn through a process of really coming to terms honestly and authentically with their own darkness.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Yeah. And I mean, you yourself have personally been through that journey, so you can kind of coach them from a position of direct experience, where you've been through it yourself, and you can share your story instead of coming from like a more academic place.
Yes.
I love that too.
Yes, 100%. We have to face off with the darkness to realize there is no darkness. It's an illusion. It's just what we've been taught. The only reason it has validity is because collectively we as humans have believed it for so long, but the belief itself is based on something that's not even factual. It's based on an idea that is common and popular and has been handed down for so long. But when we dissolve it, it's not even there. It didn't even exist in the first place. So yes, that's what we do.
Yeah, that's awesome. I really like that. It actually reminded me, over the Easter break, I had my dad and my brother over, and we all watched a movie called The Shack. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but you'll have to watch it. There's a scene in there where the gentleman's in a boat and the boat is sinking, and there's all black water coming into the boat, and he's being told that that's not real. It's just him. It's coming from inside him to breathe, relax, and then it just all starts going away. And that reminded me a lot of what you were just saying, that darkness is just something that we each have to subjectively deal with, because it's part of us, you know, on this journey. It's part of our growth. So that darkness is created by each one of us subjectively. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely, because we believe that we are this limited person. We believe that we're our illusory self, our temporal self. And so therefore every experience that we encounter, we create into our reality, because we are literally living beings of manifestation through thoughts, feelings. Like, we're energy, right? So once we believe something to be real, we permeate off the energy that it is so, and then we embed it. So in order to remove it, we have to face off with this belief we've held for so long to realize it's not real anyway, dissolve it, shift it, and move through. So my dogs are currently in their mind. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
All happening here.
So, I mean, it's easy with all of the programming that we have to deal with from little kids, you know, and there's that golden number of the first 7 years of our lives when we're children, that really kind of establishes the matrix in us, all that programming. It's so easy for us to belittle ourselves. It's so easy for us to limit ourselves in a way where we can't even see what's limiting us. So I'm really, really down with what you're saying. And it's so important to help people, like, not so much break out of that limiting framework, but to wake up to it, you know, and work with their darkness.
That's right. It's not our fault. We've just been born into this world where we've forgotten. Like, that's the whole purpose, right? If there wasn't the ego and there wasn't the darkness, we wouldn't have the motivation to wake up. It serves a purpose. So we need it in order to wake up, but eventually it becomes benign.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I like that. So once we go through the experience and you know, we're evolving, more love, less fear in our lives, things do tend to become more benign, don't they? Because we're attracting more love into our lives. We're like waking up every day questioning, why the hell am I so happy all the time?
Because things aren't personal.
Yes, I was having a conversation with somebody just yesterday, and we were just talking about, I was expressing myself to this person saying, you know, it's funny, of late, I even question myself as to, like, Mike, why are you so damn happy every day? Why are you, you know, and I notice it sometimes. It's a beautiful thing to attract love, to attract joy, you know, into our lives and reduce the fear.
Yes, because we get what we are, not what we want. That's the missing link.
I like that. So we get what we are, not what we're not. Awesome.
Not what we want. Not what we want. We get what we are, not what we want. And that's where the manifestation sometimes doesn't work, right? Because we're saying I want abundance, yet we're not showing up and embodying abundance. We're saying I want love, yet we're not embodying love. We can only get what you want outside of yourself if you become the source of that. And then you will manifest it.
And this is the kind of journey that you take people through on your 3-month program?
Yes, absolutely. So essentially how it rolls is, if you imagine your life like a car, it can be any car you want. You can pick any car. And we have 2 people in the car, 2 passengers in the car. We have a driver's seat and a passenger seat. Most of our life, our ego is in the driver's seat, because that's what our cultural conditioning and society feeds on. It's how we're conditioned to be. Ego's driving. It was never meant to drive. True self, God's self, was meant to be driving. Heart was meant to be leading, but this world kind of got it around the wrong way. So throughout the program, what we do is we switch it. God's self, higher self drives. Ego's in passenger seat. It becomes irrelevant. So then we can lead through our life from our heart. And then when we leave from our heart, nothing is unavailable, because we are living from that place of infinity and limitlessness. So then we can become the source of anything. So we have true freedom.
Wow, you know, it's amazing. The more people I speak to, it doesn't matter what discipline they come from, it doesn't matter what terminology they use, or, you know, all of that stuff. It always comes down to the heart. It always comes down to love. It always comes down to that. There's something so special about that message, you know, that ultimately at the base, fundamental level of whatever we want to call this spiritual awakening process or journey, love is there. Love is the base of it, isn't it? That's so beautiful.
We are love. That's it. And we forget that's why we suffer. That's the root of suffering. We forget.
And Kate, is this, I think I was reading somewhere on your Facebook page that this may be the last 3-month intake that you're taking for your current program.
Yes, it is. So I'm stepping right into the realms of psychedelic advocacy and work. So all of the work that I do will be based around using psychedelics. So we're setting up our retreats in Vanuatu where it's legal to use the medicines. So they will be run every 2 months. And then the rest of my time will be dedicated to making a documentary, which will be debunking like myths and fallacies around psychedelics and actually bringing a voice to not only their medicinal and therapeutic purposes, because I feel like we're all getting that now, but their spiritual essence and purpose.
Wow, so you really are stepping it up. You really are going into this realm now. How exciting
Yes.
for you. Like, you're going to have to come back on the show and give us updates on how things start going in Vanuatu. This documentary, very, very intriguing. I'd love to hear more about that as well.
Yeah, I would love that. I would love to come back on anytime. This is so much fun.
And Kate, do you have a final message for the audience who's listening to this, or who will watch this in the coming weeks and months and years? What's a message that you can leave them with?
So I'm going to quote one of my favorite teachers.
Centuries of Great Francis of Assisi, and it's what you are looking for is where you are looking from. Nothing outside of yourself can actually liberate you. So whatever you seek or whatever you get to help you, make sure it brings you back within, because that's where all the answers and the wisdom is. It's within yourself. That's it.
Absolutely beautiful. Very wise words, Kate. I would like to thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing yourself so humbly and honestly. You know, it's been a beautiful hour for me, and I know it will be for all of our audience. Trace is sending a message now saying, Mike, we are going to Vanuatu.
I would love to have you guys there.
Oh dear, that'd be great. That'd be absolutely great.
Amazing.
I'm really looking forward to connecting further with you,
Yes.
Kate, like just in the coming days and weeks. I'm really glad to have met you and spent this hour with you. So yes, we will definitely have you back on the show for an update. And
Thank you.
until then, stay busy, stay
Thank
healthy,
you.
keep helping people, and good luck with your final 3-month
Thank you.
intake.
Thank you so much. Namaste.
Thank you, Kate. Take care.
Bye.
And folks, I would like to thank each and every one of you for tuning in today to share this hour with myself and Kate. And we'll see you next week. We've got a very special guest for next week, so make sure you tune in on that one. Until then, keep your head up, keep your heart strong, and keep this thing at the forefront. See you guys. Bye for now.